Okay, everybody ready? I got 5 o'clock.
Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the special meeting of the Federal Way City Council for October 17th, 2023. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are here for a technical response to draft EIS for Sound Transit Operations and Maintenance Facility South. We'll have a staff report from Kent Smith, Sound Transit Liaison, and also EJ is on the agenda as well. Kent?
Yes, good evening, Mayor Farrell, council members. I'm here for the update on the Sound Transit OMF South, which is Operations and Maintenance Facility South, DEIS, NEPA, SEPA supplemental. Again, Kent Smith, Sound Transit Liaison. So for the agenda today, just a brief on what is an EIS. We'll go over alternatives considered and the preferred alternative, some displacements and impacts, utility impacts, economics, technical comments, and a little bit of overview of the comments to date, and I'll have a little bit of opportunity for council feedback. So what is an EIS? So EIS is Environmental Impact Statement, which it's a method through the State Environmental Policy Act, which is SEPA, also through the National Environmental Policy Act, which is NEPA, which is used to inform public agencies and decision makers about potential environmental impacts and benefits. In the case of the Operations and Maintenance Facility South, it's the U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Transit Agency, FTA, is the lead agency. Previously, Sound Transit published a SEPA DIS in March of 2021, at which that time they selected the preferred alternative by Sound Transit's board, which allowed it to advance for further evaluation. Due to the federal funding for the project and updates to the design, they elected to do a NEPA SEPA supplemental DEIS. So for the Operations and Maintenance Facility South, there are 3 alternatives that they've considered after narrowing it down after the last SEPA. So they got to the Midway Landfill alternative, which is in Kent, the South 336th Street at Christian Faith Center in Federal Way, and then South 344th Street alternative also in Federal Way. Essentially very close for those 2 alternatives in Federal Way, just slightly different depending on the property impacts if you see the image. So a couple of updates to alternatives since the last SEPA that they performed for the Operations and Maintenance Facility. The initial removed the road, which was 20th Avenue South, without any mitigation proposed. With their new alternative, they are adding back 18th Place South as an alternative to allow for traffic to get around the site rather than just simply remove the street. In addition to this, they also provide a new road extension, which is 21st Avenue South, which eliminates a non-conforming dead-end street to allow better flow. There are essentially no updates to the South 344th Street alternative. It is the same as the last round. Another update that they did with this work was to add on the mainline track to this project, allowing it to come into operation before the Tacoma Dome Link extension, because initially Tacoma Dome Link extension would build all that mainline track. This also added a test track, which is that purple line adjacent to the main line. And you can see there are 2 alternatives for the main line just north of where the Federal Link extension left off. Those are essentially speed alternatives. So one alternative is a 40 mile per hour, the other is a 55 mile per hour. The 55 takes a little bit more property from Belmar, otherwise they're fairly similar. The test track sits essentially directly adjacent to the main line, just slightly below, so if anything has an equal impact to the initial. So for displacements and impacts, this is taken directly from the DIS documentation. So for the preferred alternative, which is the left column, there are 37 parcels expected to be affected. This includes, so there's 6 businesses with between 86 to 92 residential displacements. That difference from the 86 to 92 is essentially the difference from the 55 mile per hour alternative to the 40 mile per hour alternative, which takes slightly more property with the 55, so slightly more displacements. There's also 103 acres of land converted to transportation use from initial. That includes 36 from the main line, 67 for OMF, for the site itself. And then there's 126 employees expected to be displaced by the preferred alternative. You can see on the others for South 344th Street as well as the Midway landfill. Quite a bit less for Midway landfill, but there are other issues associated with it. Level of visual impact essentially the same for all three. The only difference is in the main line for Midway, because the main line is already constructed or is under construction in the same location, so there's essentially no difference whether or not it goes there or not. And then you can see some of the social resources, community facilities, neighborhoods. Preferred alternative, it displaces the church, the associated daycare, school, in-home daycare center. Continuing on some displacements and impacts, the preferred alternative has up to 3,100 linear feet of stream impact. For noise, there's between, they gave it a rating from 0 to 4. Essentially, it's up to like 4 properties they expect might be impacted by the noise. They have mitigation plan, and I can talk about that a little bit later. It's similar for the South 344th Street alternative. Essentially, the difference again is that 40 to 55 mile per hour. Based on the curves and on the speed, it has more impact the faster it goes. There's 14 acres of mature forest they expect to be permanently impacted. Again, then there's 4.3 long-term impacts to wetlands expected with the preferred alternative. Similar numbers to the South 344th Street, just a little bit higher on some of those. And then the Midway landfill, as you can see, most of them are 0, but it does have its own other challenges. You can see under geology and soils, there's quite a bit of material that is moved with the Midway landfill alternative, where with the preferred alternative, it's essentially a wash between the import and the export. They're very similar numbers. So. Utility impacts. A lot of this is related to existing utility main lines that run through 20th Avenue. So in order to vacate that street, they'll need to remove those water mains, either replace them or relocate them, likely under the new street extension or within some easements adjacent to the property. Additionally, there's some stormwater collection. You can see there's quite a bit relocated, a little bit removed. Electricity, a lot of underground that would need to be relocated or removed, as well as natural gas, cable communications, with no expected petroleum or fuel impacted. For economics, for both these tables, essentially a lot of this is related to, as it comes down to, replacing the existing parcels that could be used for taxable income compared to not. In the case of the preferred alternative, a large portion of it actually is the Christian Faith Center, which is not taxable currently, so it's not much of a difference in that way. But you can see on the bottom table, it's a total of 37 parcels for the preferred alternative, with total taxable value that of that area that would be replaced is 88.5 million. With the jurisdiction is the whole of Federal Way is estimated at 13.9 billion. So it's 0.64% that would be acquired from the jurisdiction, essentially taking away taxable property. The South 344th Street alternative is slightly higher, 0.72. And then you can see the Midway landfill alternative. Largely, that's due to the size of the Kent jurisdiction. As you see, their jurisdictional total taxable value is at 25.1 billion. So just because of their area. Again, and some of this other stuff is for cost estimates. You can see the preferred alternative on the graph above, the figure above. About 1.9 billion to 2.2 billion total is the cost estimate. Similar for the 344th Street alternative. And the Midway landfill alternative is a high range, partly due to the options they may need to do to install the facility there. For completing the facility, there's a wide range. That both alternatives in Federal Way are around 4 years or 5 years, if you round up. Then the Midway landfill alternative, anywhere from 7 to 10, based on what they would need to do for the site. Talking a little bit more about noise and vibration. So they did collect information at the existing levels, basically from I-5 and the surrounding community, to establish a baseline for all of the noise at various sites. This included along the track in Belmore, at the preferred alternative site, at the alternative site on 344th, as well as the Midway landfill. They used those baseline models and then compared them to their existing facilities that they already have installed doing the similar actions, and essentially showed that there were no impacts except for those 4 properties that could be there with the 55-mile-per-hour alternative, which in that location they would propose installing noise walls in order to mitigate for those impacts. Let's see. As far as current status of the review, staff for multiple departments is still reviewing the reports and conceptual design. We have until the 5th of November, I believe, for all the comments to be due back to Sound Transit. 6th of November? 6th of November. Like I said, review is not complete. This highlights some of the key issues so far. Consultants have reviewed the technical transportation report. When the first SEPA environmental came through, those were reviewed, and those comments that were generated at that time are still valid, so they'll still be applied to this NEPA SEPA supplemental. And we will send a technical review letter to Sound Transit with our complete findings before the close of the DIS period. So a couple of important highlights for the facility. The project as presented is unable to meet the block perimeter requirements at either Federal Way site, but compared to the initial SEPA DEIS, it is improved based on the addition of the new roadway. The updated proposal for the preferred alternative includes new roads, so that's, that added a couple of spots. Staff is analyzing the structural capacity of the roadway it's intended to be used for construction and operations to access the facility. This includes also, we're going to be asking them to look at the roadways and access in and out from the proposed vehicles that will enter the site, based on, bringing in new trains, because that's part of the point of the OMF facility is commissioning and starting new trains. So we want to make sure that the access is correct. And then police response times will be impacted based on the removal of the road. But the EIS does not include an analysis to determine the potential level of impact. In the previous presentation, there was an impact to the employment and tax base to the city with alternatives, as well as the opportunity cost of losing vacant underutilized land for future development. The DIS considers the cumulative impacts, but inadequately for the commercial enterprise zone for the following reasons. This is coming from previous comments that we had on the last time this came through for the SEPA. So this is partial of this area is the CE zone, which is the only zone where certain uses are permitted. This includes some of the major stores and some light industrial uses. Losing some of this land in this zone has an impact on potential relocations as well as future development. And the other is transit-oriented development does increase density, but residential is not permitted use in the CE at this time or in any adopted plans, so that does impact it. The 336 site does not consider or discuss potential impacts to historic view shed of Weyhauser. That's not really mentioned in the DEIS. Staff will also provide comments related to how the project relates to all the comprehensive plan policies. There's also limited landscaping room based on the site for screening. That's kind of based on compatibility and the way that the facility runs. And I'll ask if there's any feedback.
All right, Council President Kochmar?
Well, I have a couple of questions. What will the facility look like? I mean, I'm trying to visualize. Are they tearing down the Christian Faith Center and building a brand-new facility? And what will that exactly look like?
I don't have a great image in front of me right now. It'll be very similar to the one that they built in Bellevue that is just coming online. The buildings are pretty prescriptive in how they have to be to maintenance the trains, as well as some of the facilities they have around it. It's a pretty big building, but we are hoping to get some of the architecture defined a little bit better, so it's not just a blank warehouse-looking facility. They have some options when they're building these type of things to define them. Sound Transit does, to define parameters to make sure that it's not just a blank building, that it does look
So will the
presentable.
trains be inside of the building?
Some of the time. A lot of the time, they're actually parked on the tracks that surround it. I can, well, if I can share
No,
my-
I know what that looks like, but could you, are they going to have some kind of landscaping to, you know?
They will have landscaping on the perimeter. In some locations, it may be beneficial to have the trains shown, and we've discussed it, staff has discussed it with Sound Transit as the option of perhaps it's an area to view the trains and view a lot of the work actually takes place at night, so they won't really be moving around a lot, but they do station during the day.
And I'm actually more curious, do you know where this isn't to do with the OMF facility, but where the line will go when it leaves the OMF facility and heads to Tacoma? Will it be going through, what near Costco, what will it be going through?
It isn't defined exactly yet. They haven't chosen that preferred alternative or chosen that project to build. That's coming with with the Federal Link extension, sorry, not with the Tacoma Dome Link extension, which I believe their expected date is 2026 for their DEIS.
Thank you.
Okay, this is the order of follow-up questions. We've got council members Walsh, McDaniel, Dovey, Cefados, and then Deputy Mayor Honda. Councilmember Walsh?
Yes, thank you, Kent. Thanks for the presentation. Could you go to your slides and go back just a few?
Sure.
Probably back about two, another one. Yeah, hold on. Yes, there.
This one?
What is meant by block perimeter requirements?
So essentially, that there's a maximum that a block can have in order to well, I don't know if I know the exact reasoning for the block perimeter size, but there's a maximum area that a block can be, and then essentially with removing the street, and also because it's adjacent to I-5, you can't put another street in there to make a block. So you're restricting the size, so it ends up as a bigger block than is allowed per code.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Councilmember McDaniel?
Couple questions. Is it I'm a little behind the power curve on some of these guys. Is it solidified that that location will be going live? Because you said alternate locations on the example today, and the one that seemed the most sense was the landfill. I mean, it impacts the lease, has a little more cost and a little bit longer time, but it seemed to be most logical. Is it solidified that it will be built where the Christian Faith Center is?
Well, first of all, we're with you, Councilmember. We are all solidly behind your statement there.
Yeah.
And we've testified, but let's turn it over to Ken.
It is not set yet. After their DEIS period, they'll publish their final environmental impact statement, and then it's up to the Sound Transit Board to choose the project to build. And at that point, that's when they can choose either the preferred alternative or any of the other two that are within this study time.
Okay. And the second question is, there's a lot of trees being chopped down on 336 right underneath the I-5 section. Is that part of this, is this part of the Sound Transit that's doing that?
I don't believe so.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
It
makes
part,
sense.
They're doing geotechnical testing out there right now to determine soil compatibility and bearing strength. So
Okay.
they applied and received permits to remove some trees under what will be the future track alignment
Okay.
to do that testing.
Will it be that close to I-5, like literally right
Yeah.
next to it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those are my questions. Thanks.
And recall, if you, for those listening and for everybody else, recall, if you will, that they found out about the soil instability at 259th just to the west of the freeway. That's what's caused a year delay in the system because they found out a little too late in the process to avoid the delay. And so you had sloughing of soils in the ground right around the 259th area to the point where they're having to span that area, which will be the largest area of span in the system. And they're trying to bridge that, literally. So just FYI. You're welcome. All right, Councilmember Dovey.
Yeah, just a couple questions. What is viewscape? You had that on your slide, the Weyerhaeuser viewscape?
Yeah, so it's
What's that
essentially
mean?
like the view of Weyerhaeuser from, it's like the landscape essentially, but it's the view of the landscape from a specific point.
Okay. And how many jobs will this displace? Was it 136, I think you said? 132?
Let me see if I can get back to it.
Jack, that asking most of those.
It's estimated as it's 126 employees.
What's that?
It's estimated as 126 employees.
And how many will it add?
I believe the number was 610 last time.
So if they pick this place, we're not really losing 132 jobs, we're gaining 500?
Correct.
Okay. And how much sales tax does this generate in building the project? Do you have any idea?
EJ?
So the one thing I will point out with the employment, Councilmember Dovey, is so they need to quantify the job loss and the job creation, to your point. The jobs that are lost
Right.
are teachers in the school, people working at the daycare. They-
Most of them at the church, right?
Yes,
Right.
but they will effectively, they're not the same people that will be employed.
No,
at a
I
maintenance
get it.
facility.
You lose
So-
jobs, but you gain jobs.
So the net
It's-
total absolutely is increased, but as far as Sound Transit being transparent, you know, the 120 that are being lost are not going to be replaced at this location
Right.
effectively. So I think that's the differentiation that they're trying to draw attention to.
Well, I'm asking the question, I mean, if, for whatever reason, the church closed, those jobs are going to lose anyway.
Absolutely.
So I'm looking at what's going to grow and if they put it here. I mean, I get that. But it's a net additional jobs in our city. And then if Sound Transit buys this or condemns it, do we get real estate excise tax?
Yes.
Yes? And it's probably a sizable number?
I'm going to phone a friend on
I mean, I'm just asking,
I know that the tax rate is 0.5% on the transaction.
0.5% on some multi-million-dollar deal?
Right.
Okay.
Do we know what about 50 acres, right? Do we know what that's valued at?
So that's not valued because they're tax exempt today, which is part of the reason I don't really have a good answer for Councilmember Dovey's question. So King County does not perform property assessments on non-taxable property. So there is no assessor's list value for that right now. And with how complicated of a building it is, you know, without someone going out and doing an inspection, there's not really a good way to estimate it.
Okay.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, Councilmember Seffa Dawson.
Yeah, my first question is, why are we still talking about the landfill? I thought it was pretty much a done deal, right?
They are required to talk about it for this DIS, so they have not eliminated it as an option within their analysis, so that's part of it.
But we can't justify, advocate or anything at this point, correct?
I mean, they have not set in stone that they will build at the preferred alternative, I said that.
Okay. And when you were talking about the, how much land they would require to go 55 miles versus 40,
Yeah,
would that also impact whatever kind of train they would use?
I believe the train doesn't change, it just allows them to travel slightly faster through that curve.
Okay, so weight, nothing, none of that would be
No,
impacted?
same type of train, yeah, it's not as sharp as of a curve, so they can travel a little faster.
So what's that distance that they'll be traveling at 40 versus 55?
Couple 500 feet, something like that.
So it won't impact this, how long it takes to get from point A to point B. That much.
It's a slight impact, but yeah,
I was just say fractions of a second.
Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Honda.
Thank you. So first of all, when we went to see the Bellevue OMF, and if council members haven't gone up to see the Bellevue building, you might want to, because this building, we were told in Federal Way, will be bigger than the one in Bellevue, and the one in Bellevue is pretty darn big. In that we will potentially have this operating around the clock, because there's gonna be so many trains coming in and out. So it's not just a nighttime operation is what my understanding has been. I could be wrong. But will all 3 sites be studied for this, or just the one? Do they have to do this kind of study on all 3 sites, or just on this site?
are you talking for
The
for the
DEIS?
DIS? Yes, it's for all 3 sites. So for the entire document, they analyze each site for all of these requirements.
Okay. And this street that we're talking about is currently the street that runs in front of Christian Faith Center.
Correct.
So where are they moving that to?
So they're getting rid of 20th, and they're creating a new street that would be 18th Avenue. It's on the west side of the site. If I can show it on here. It's a little hard to read on the left-hand picture. It's adjacent to where it says parking. So it runs between, there's a wetland on the
Oh,
very
the new
west.
road extension, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're driving on 336, it's almost around the location of the Christian Faith Center entrance that's closer to 99. So it's similar to where that entrance opens up.
So, I've heard a rumor, and it's just a rumor. I've heard that they need more property than what they have. Is that true? That they're looking for some more acres?
Compared to what they show in this.
Yes.
I haven't heard that from them specifically. I'm not sure exactly.
So this road, is it gonna go through wetlands?
Currently, it's adjacent to the wetland, and I believe it's in the boundary, and it may push into the wetland depending on how the final design comes out. But any impacts to the wetlands would need to be mitigated correctly, so if it does impact the wetland, it would require mitigation.
Okay. So I would just say to the council that there's more than just the church there. They're taking businesses out that are adjacent to the church, because it's more than just the church property that they're taking. And the potential that we had as a city to make this into a business park eventually one day, because this is a 100-year project, right? Is gone, so the future benefit to the city probably would have had a bigger impact than just putting this there, in my opinion. So, the Hylabus runs along the I-5, right?
It's kind of a split, that a portion of it would be adjacent to I-5. There's a little bit of green space you can see that goes where it says lead tracks on that right.
How are they protecting that, if they're protecting it?
They're staying outside of or adjacent to the boundary for that stream on that side. So they, essentially, everything that's lead tracks and mainline track there is elevated, so they will be outside of the waterway.
So when they come off I-5 to go into this property, are they going across the street and then coming up? Or are they going alongside and then crossing the street at some point?
For the most part, they're above everything adjacent to I-5, so the solid green line is at grade track. The dashed line is elevated. So all that dashed line, they are above, either they're above the street and above the waterway, and then they come down into the site itself. That's at grade.
So the condos that are right there by I-5, are those impacted?
I don't believe they displace any of the residents there. They're close, but no.
And what are the city's concerns? What will be in the letter to the city? I mean, to Sound Transit in the technical letter?
Some of it is what we spoke, or what I spoke about with the block perimeter issues, some of the impacts to residents, to businesses, to potential development on this spot. We've worked through a few, like removing the road and adding this new road does help block perimeter, so there's some stuff that they've gotten a little bit better on since the last time they came around. I don't know if you know of any more that I can jump on, EJ?
EJ?
Yeah, I mean, most of the concerns that were raised the last couple of slides of the presentation are the key items. That there are certainly a volume of much more technical comments, as far as complying with very specific sections of city code that are being drafted by multiple departments from the city and consolidated. I think the key items is what Kent went through, and I don't know if you want to flash them back up on the screen,
Yeah.
Kent, but the last couple of slides of the presentation are the key issues that are being commented on in the letter.
Okay. Will we see that letter?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah. Should be
Fine.
included. You should be CC'd.
okay.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't dare to send that out without showing council.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Sepideh, then Councilmember Dovey.
Yeah, what are the chances that they could decide to use both alternatives, 336 and 344 combined?
To change it essentially to like a
To make
combination
it one
alternative?
big, yeah.
They would probably need to go through this process again, so I don't know if it would be likely that they would that they would combine them. Yeah,
Okay.
All right.
there's some ability to modify a little depending on how they orient the site. That kind of comes down to when they get past the site selection and to design build.
Or even a portion.
Yes, I mean, there's a portion, but it's not like, I don't know if it's a drastic difference. They wouldn't be able to drastically move the site.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Dovey?
I just have one more question and a comment. And maybe I missed it and didn't hear it. The timeline, I mean, we have an entity in our city that the church where this is being proposed kind of in limbo. When do they actually find out, or what's the timeline before somebody makes a decision?
The date, I believe, for project to be built is next year, is that they expect to make their decision?
So another 12 months before the entity that owns the land gets notified that that's been chosen, something like that?
Essentially, they've also entered into they gotten permission from their board for essentially early acquisition, so that they can talk to the property owners they expect to be impacted. So there's more conversation about what would happen, what compensation would look like, more than just we might go here. So there's some more discussion already underway.
Okay. And my comment is more for a history lesson for everybody up here, because nobody was on the council when I was on the council, and this was going to be a truck farm. And everybody came in and said, we don't want a church there, we want a truck farm, because it's going to take our tax base away. And then eventually, the citizens and everybody else changed and voted to let Christian Faith build there. So now, 17 years later, or whatever it is, we're now talking about making it into a industrial area, which, I just give that as a history lesson, because I don't think anybody was sitting up here when we had those debates.
Well, remember
But
when we
you
had
were,
that-
I know I was.
I think I just got on the council in 2004, when we were in a quasi-judicial function.
Yeah.
Sitting as the judge to allow CFC to come in.
Yeah, to take the truck farm away to make it into a church. So anyway, I just find that full circle.
Right, it is. It's fascinating. Okay, Deputy Mayor?
Is Eleanos still safe from being taken?
Yes, if the preferred alternative is chosen, yes. If the South 344th Street alternative is to be chosen, then no, they would be impacted. That's, they choose that.
And if other council members want to go up to Bellevue to see the OMF up there, can that be arranged? I
Yeah,
can't
certainly.
remember who went. I know you went and I went.
Yeah, I went.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
It is pretty interesting to look at.
I definitely recommend it.
Thank you.
Actually, that's my concern because that's so huge. I don't remember how many acres it is, but it seems larger than this one.
Well, and they said we're going to be larger than that.
Yeah, no,
Right.
the deputy mayor is correct. This one's, I want to say about 10 acres larger.
And the space actually is?
Let's see.
Yeah, I think Bellevue is 45 to 50 acres, and this is about 60.
Wow, it doesn't seem like it. Okay.
So if council members want to go, could you arrange that and do what you
Absolutely.
did last time?
Yeah, just have them reach out to Amy, and we can certainly set it up.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's do it the other way. Would you please have Amy email the council?
Well, Amy is gone until.
I'm sorry, not Amy. I meant,
Pam.
sorry, I thought there was somebody in Public
Okay.
Works. Could you reach out to council and see if, who's
Sure.
interested proactively? Council President?
Well, I just want to make sure, because we will have, if this is chosen, we'll have trains sitting outside, and any landscaping barriers we can put up, to,
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying we want to make sure it's fully screened and not visible from the right of way?
well,
Is
as
that
much
what I'm-
as you can. I mean, it's
Okay.
being realistic. I mean,
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I understand your comment.
yeah,
Okay.
because anytime we take down a tree in this city, we are going to hear about it. But it would be
enough.
very helpful if we were to have landscaping so that there are barriers between, especially people who live there in the area.
It'll provide assistance with noise and light pollution as well, as you know.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, council, any other questions? Kent, anything for the good of the order?
No, I think that's all I
Could you say Weyerhaeuser again?
got. Weyerhaeuser?
Okay, all right. Where are you from?
I'm from Walla Walla, Washington.
Ah, okay, all right. Very good, very good. Thank you. EJ, anything for the good of the order?
No, Mayor.
All right. Okay, great job, everybody. Great job, Kent.
Thank you.
All right, we will be adjourned until we resume for the full city council meeting at 6:30.